Sam Lee is one of Britain's most celebrated singer-songwriters, specialising in folk music. He spent years collecting Britain's indigenous folk songs before they died out. Lee is also a passionate activist, determined to raise awareness of the impact of climate change on the natural world. Every springtime, he brings groups to the woods of southern England to sing with nightingales, birds which face the threat of extinction. His events are a wake-up call to humanity to act before it is too late.
It's a conservation project at its heart. It's about awareness of what we have to lose, the beauty of nature that we're not appreciating or valuing or protecting, and creating an experience that in many ways is trying to realign people back to a way of being in nature on a spiritual, on a romantic, on a meditative level.
Lee leads the group into the woods to hear nightingales sing as they return to their birthplace from Africa.
They have this incredible ability, as migrating birds do, to find their way using a chemical mental reading of the magnetic fields of the earth to go exactly to the same place that they were born when they return and to know where to go. We've always assumed that nature will return and it'll appear back, but then the nightingales are the sort of species that is so sensitive to all the impacts of climate change and human activity that it could just be that the population you heard last year haven't survived.
Nightingales are small, nondescript birds, rarely seen. The male sings to attract a mate, listening intently for a response. As part of his events, Singing with Nightingales, Lee brings musicians and singers into the woods to make music with the birds.
We bring musicians from all cultures and all traditions and practices. We had a cellist from South Africa called Abel Silakau who started playing the cello. And the nightingale went nuts. Absolutely nuts, and started singing and singing, dropped into the same key as Abel's cello, and just started to come into rhythmic similarity and all sorts of gestures. There was such awareness of his music, and there were times where they just seemed to dance together.
It's not just climate change which threatens the nightingale, but also the loss of their habitat in Europe and in Africa. Worldwide, nearly half of bird species are in decline. In the UK, the nightingale population has fallen by over 90% in the last 50 years, and they could soon disappear altogether.
Intensification of agriculture, pesticide use, so absolute catastrophic decline in insect population, which is that, it's the meat, it's the meat and veg of birds' diets, and so birds are simply not getting enough food, so they're starving to death on particularly those long migratory journeys. The UK has a terrible situation with a ballooning population of deer, both native deer and introduced species, that are eating back a lot of the growth. There's an enormous amount of hunting that's still going on of wild songbirds, particularly in Europe, southern Europe. Millions of birds are being shot, but also big changes in agricultural practices in sub-Saharan Africa, and drought there is meaning that the ones who have mated and survived the enormous thousands of kilometre journey get to their African homes and are not getting enough weight on to make it back.
Sam Lee's love of nature and music began in childhood. Born to artistic parents, he grew up in urban North London, not far from the parkland of Hampstead Heath.
I was encouraged to get dirty, to be messy, to be a little bit wild, to explore my boundaries and things and risks and inquisitiveness into species names. As a child, I wasn't told to keep clean or stay away from that and keep off the grass. Parents who really understood the importance of that for children And so I got a kind of real sense of what wildness was like. Lighting fires, going off camping out of London in the summers. And within that community and culture, there was a great interest in learning about nature, but also singing the songs about nature, and particularly the old folk songs. I wasn't really aware they were what they were. They were just our songs. And when I kind of discovered about Britain's ancient indigenous musical culture, I was totally awestruck by it.
After studying art, Lee pursued his interest in folk music, researching the songs of itinerant ethnic communities that travel in Britain and Ireland. He was helped by one of Scotland's foremost experts.
His name is Stanley Robertson. He died 12 years ago, and he was the last of the Scottish travellers who are an ancient indigenous people with their own language, own culture, and took me on this apprenticeship, this initiation into the way of that community. So I went off as a young 20-year-old, determined to find people who remembered the songs from their mother and father and their grandparents singing from around the campfires. And I went into traveller sites, I went into these sides of roads, under motorways, into caravans, and found these old people who nobody had ever come to speak to and ask questions of, and spent 15 years documenting thousands of hours of audio and film.
Lee's archive has become the Song Collectors Collective, a vast resource of stories, recordings and videos. The songs themselves became an inspiration for his own music, for which he was nominated for Britain's prestigious Mercury Prize.
So there's a song called The Moon Shines Bright on my album Old Wow, which I learnt from the singing of the last of the English gypsy singers, Frida Black, who died in 2020, aged 93. The moon shines bright, and the stars give a light. In a little while it will be day. The voice of love, it calls upon us all and bids us awake and pray. As a musician, it's taking these songs, working with musicians and filmmakers and artists of all sorts as a curator of those songs, as both a kind of nanny and also a teacher and an initiator and a sort of, as a vessel for them to suddenly have meaning and, dare I say, popularity and commercial relevance today. I want commercial success for these songs, not because I want to make money from them, but because I want them to be heard, because they're so powerful and beautiful.
Sam Lee's 3 commercial albums to date have shaken up the music scene, breaking boundaries between folk and contemporary music.
For it's all a young woman, my fortune is hard, and I've been over-courted by a rakish young lad. We sowed the seeds of love. We showed them how to sing, grown with the knowing of wildness in their blood, more than the sum of the everything. I see moonlight, I'm walking through that moonlight, lay this body down, lay this body down.
In 2019, Sam Lee was asked by the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds to help produce a music single of birdsong called Let Nature Sing, to highlight the threat to Britain's bird population.
It's true, actually. It'd be nice. The first one's a bit quieter and the second one is, could do, couldn't it? I was given an amazing array of recordings of bird songs of particularly our red list endangered species, but all native birds, and created a 2.5-minute journey that told the story from morning till night of different birds, birds of different habitats, wetland birds, forest birds, garden birds, mountain birds, all sorts, to imagine a conversation between them all, as though they were talking with one another, and created an artificial but yet very poetic journey through those species. How does one make birdsong into a video? Well, you get a shadow puppet performer, and we created this amazing video of this man just using hand gestures to imitate the very birds that were singing. And it was a beautiful film, and it got to number 16 in the charts.
In 2019, Lee also added his own special voice to the climate change protest movement known as Extinction Rebellion.
When they first began, I took it upon myself, enamoured by the organisation and what they were campaigning for, to create an action, an event that was to draw attention really to the species in Great Britain that were being most affected by climate change, and creating a theatrical gathering, a romantic performance that wasn't a concert. It was just a bringing together of people to pay homage and our respects to the species that we have lost, the extinct species, and those that are on the brink of extinction.
The nightingale is such a potent creature for being the absolute spokesperson for our hearts.
Thousands attended his event in central London to sing along to the British popular song from 1939 about a nightingale singing in Berkeley Square. Lee believes musicians have a special responsibility to respond to the climate emergency.
We have to bring about the biggest societal change of any generation, really. And currently governments aren't doing enough. So if our greatest singers and pop stars and musicians of all genres can start to bring this message within their music and within their social media and within their communications, then we have one of the greatest platforms to bring about social change.
Lee has now published The Nightingale, a book telling the story of our relationship with the nightingale in all its international and artistic depth. The book is a warning about what we risk losing.
The book is about telling the stories that may be forgotten. He's such an incredible songster. He's been such a teacher for so many different musical traditions. And you find references to nightingales in some of the greatest works of ancient poetry and folklore, folk song. It's one of the key figures that is ubiquitous across Northern Hemisphere culture, as far over as Korea and, down into Afghanistan. The bird has been an inspiration for artists for thousands of years. So to lose that would be like losing a wing of the Louvre, of the National Gallery. It would be an absolute tragedy for our species to lose that opportunity to hear nightingales sing.
As artist and activist, Sam Lee is convinced that celebrating the beauty of nature is the way to grow public support for climate action.
I think there's a phrase that has really inspired me in my approach to everything I do, and that is to beat the opposition, to bring about change, to beat the evil forces, one has to throw a better party. That, for me, really speaks to what being an artist is about, that we are entertainers, and to bring people over to our side to say there's a better way of doing things, and it's a more joyful and more connected, more community-based, more independent and self-sufficient way of living. We have to do it through joy and celebration, and I think that's going to be the secret of our success, of getting out of the mess we're in right now.